Get out of here.
Wait, this is my office.
It took you longer than it should have.
Okay, well, thank you guys both for doing this. I think, like most good ideas, this one started at a pub. Is that right? So take me back. It was you and Bill initially.
Yeah, and we were working on sort of separate ideas that were about grief, sort of a comedy about grief, and about therapy. And we had, I think my version was much darker, and his version was possibly lighter. And we were talking about it, and like, actually, you put these together, this is the right tone for the show.
What's the darker version?
A lot more murder. And then we I mean, the thing with it, we had dream people, and he was the dream. And I don't know if you know Jason Segel, but he's fantastic. Fantastic. But he also has something like a quite special quality that, I mean, he's here, so cover your ears. But
Super awkward for you?
He's so sort of, he's fucking funny, and he's a very good dramatic actor, but he also has like an inherent empathetic, sympathetic vulnerability, emotion. Like, you just love him. I just love him.
That's so sweet.
And it meant that with this character, it's like you can take him quite far into doing the wrong thing or making bad decisions. And as an audience, I think you just love him, and it means you can push it quite far. And he has all that inherent vulnerability. And so we FaceTimed with him, thinking no chance. And I remember being like, I wasn't sure how it had gone. After we sort of pitched him, would you like to be involved? And then the day later he said, yeah, and we were like, fuck, yes.
How often, what do the incoming calls look like now? I mean, you write so much of your own stuff. So what do the incoming calls look like, and how did this sort of compare to the ones that have come in recent years?
Yeah, this was a really interesting situation because I do write a lot of what I do, but maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I got a cold call from Bill Lawrence, who said that he wanted to try to make a show together. And we had met really briefly like 10 years ago.
Okay.
So that's a really dreamy call to get. And also I feel like Bill is really amazing at what he does, and there's a Venn diagram overlap of our two styles that I thought would work really well together. And so then, you never know if anything's going to come of it. And we pitched back and forth a couple ideas, and then he came to me with Brett, and I was really excited because I think Brett is the best at what he does as well. And that's true. And then they pitched me this idea, and it felt like the real wheelhouse of what I wanted to do if I was going to make another TV comedy. Because I did one for like 9 years.
A while.
A really, really long time. And I thought, okay, I've kind of had that experience. But this was this beautiful mix of drama and comedy. And I think that making people laugh through tragedy is like, it's my favorite form of comedy. Even Forgetting Sarah Marshall, when I was like 25 years old, that was like as dramatic a thing as you might go through at that age, losing your girlfriend. Like your heart's broken and all that stuff. And I think like the full frontal nudity in Forgetting Sarah Marshall is the best I could do at like raw vulnerability.
Yep.
And then this was, what if we do the grown-up version of that? What if someone is mourning the loss of something that they will never get back, but it's real stakes and it's grown-up feelings, and combine that with like pratfalls and an amazing comedy cast. It just felt like perfect.
Do you have, as you just noted, you were on a sitcom for 9 years. Do you have, what are the sort of questions that you have, perhaps concerns, hesitations that you have going into something again? How do you make that decision?
Yeah, the concerns I have, but television has changed, are about repetition.
Yep.
The nature of a sitcom from the era we did that is that you're supposed to make syndication so that you can then check in to any episode.
Yep.
It's like comfort food.
Yep.
It makes sense, no matter when you tune in. And I had the same concern about movies. It became repetition. Like something does well, and then you do like decreasing versions of that. this was really different. It is a 5-hour story with a beginning, a middle, and end, and you watch these people have really fully realized arcs. And not just my character, which has a beautiful arc, but like everyone. They did an amazing job of like every character has a fully realized journey. And so it felt like I felt lucky.
So this FaceTime that you weren't so sure was
Yeah.
went so well. What do you remember from it? Did you walk away feeling like it went well?
Well, I don't like lie. You know what I mean? And so I don't sit there the whole time like, oh, I love it, I love it, I love it. I was really listening. And then I do this thing that maybe is not the smartest thing career-wise, but I then like take some time to think if I'm actually the best person to play the part. And sometimes I have been offered things that I like would have loved to do, but I tell them like I don't think I'm the best guy for it. I think somebody else might be able to do it
With
better.
people around you saying like you're being
Yeah,
an
you're
idiot
crazy.
here, just take it.
Yeah, because I try to imagine playing it, and if I got the if it will make what they're trying to do the best version of it, because I make stuff too, and so I know that you like whoever's pitching you the thing wants their thing to be great.
Yep.
But this one I felt like kind of like Liam Neeson in Taken when he says I have a unique skill set. I felt like this used a lot of what I can do.
And the world of therapy, you
Yeah.
all sort of came to this idea of like this is a world that is going to be sort of ripe for stories. I think Bill has said you guys are all shrinked up. I think is his terminology, if I have that correct. What is it that you wanted to explore there? Where did you think that you could take this? Where did you think you couldn't take it?
I think therapy, listen, we're all fans of therapy. I would recommend anyone who has access to it does it. I mean, we're all crazy, and we would have been much more crazy without it. And but I also think it's such an interesting such a unique relationship between a therapist and their patient. It's like so intimate, and they know everything, and it can go on for years and years and years of your life. And yet, there's these boundaries you don't really know about them, and you paying them. It's such a unique and strange relationship, and also they're of course people, and they have their own problems in their own lives. So I think there's drama and comedy inherent in that relationship, and I think there's a slight element of like wish fulfillment in this show in terms of I think some people would love their therapist to shake it and say, "Here's what you need to do."
Right. Yeah.
But I also think, as much as we play around with the edges of it, we also take it very seriously. We didn't want to ever disrespect therapy. We had so many consultants and therapists checking everything. We didn't want it to be a joke about therapy. It's within the bounds of exploring it without being stupid.
Do you prepare your own therapists for a project like this?
I told my own therapist when we were starting to write and prep, like, I just want you to know some of these sessions I'm going to be just looking at you, and you're going to feel a very different energy.
And how did your therapist take this? And did your sessions
gonna
then
be
change
taking
as a
notes.
result? Exactly.
I think he loved it. I think the funny thing, like, unintentional segue, I think, like, one of the things that the show kind of reminds you of, it's easy to view your therapist as just an authority figure, but they're just like a flawed human being.
Yep.
So I imagine my therapist felt a flush of pride.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Oh, I'm gonna watch it. I wonder if I'll see little bits of
Right,
myself.
right.
You know.
No, I think that is totally right. So your character in this also, goes. I mean, when the show opens, it is obviously sort of very broken.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to call him sort of a mess.
Sure.
And you see this amazing sort of evolution. I guess I'm curious, as an actor, sort of the playing that initial broken guy sitting outside, with all sorts of drugs and women and what is that easier or harder to play? I guess the question is really sort of where are you most comfortable? What are the hardest parts? What are the most comfortable parts for you to explore?
Those parts are actually very comfortable to explore because I think that we all have our versions of rock bottom.
Yep.
And we may have experienced the loss of somebody. We may have just felt really bad. You know what I mean? Like, everyone knows this feeling of rock bottom of I don't know if I can take this much more and it can't get any worse. That part I actually find really fun to explore because you're not falling down. The only way to go is up. So rock bottom is this exercise in watching someone crawl their way up, which is inherently funny. They have no roadmap. It's dark. How the hell do I get out of here? I think the biggest challenge I've always felt for acting is trying not to show off. It's like as that camera is inching closer and closer to you, your instinct is like, oh, now's my moment. Like now I really show them.
Yep.
What
You
I'm
can go big as possible. Yep.
Yeah, and it's like really the exact opposite. To try to just stay honest when that camera's getting closer and closer, I think is the really fun challenge.
You talked at the beginning about this idea of sort of emotional vulnerability, and I'm curious, sort of as you are writing this show, and presumably you are sort of asking each other, we got to keep pushing. Where is that line? And what are those conversations like? What felt like perhaps it could be too far and sort of veers outside of being funny anymore?
Yeah. It's such a process that is at every stage of it, in the scripts, in the shooting, in the edit, that you're, and I guess it's instinctual, but you're moving the knob so sometimes you're like, this is too funny, it's now too silly that we won't take it seriously, or this is so depressing, we're never going to laugh again. And it changes, you think you've nailed it at script, but then when you're on set, I think sometimes you're like, I think this is too heavy, or could we be lighter, or could you be heavier with it? And same again in the edit. But it's very marginal sometimes, and I also think the writer's room, my experience with all the writers' room I've been in, which is Ted Lasso and this one, is it's like group therapy. You've got a load of people sharing their trauma, and you go, and all of it is the emotion of it you take from everyone's vulnerability, everything is added into it. So I don't know if you can calculate it just comes, but you know it as well. Like you get it.
When did you feel like, are there times, what were the moments where you either dialed back or pushed harder?
Well, what's neat about film acting as opposed to theater is that you get to decide after the fact. And so my kind of strategy going in is always to try to provide a range when you're doing the scene. Like, you don't really know what the scene is until you get there. And you don't know what your co-star is going to do. And the dialogue is great, and you have maybe a plan, but then you realize, this plan means nothing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so I just think it's a really neat place where you're exploring, like, what happens over here, what happens over here, what happens over here. And hopefully by the time you then get into edit, you get to kind of pick and choose based on doing the same thing with all the scenes around it. It's like the last stage of writing. You get to write again, in the edit.
Yeah. And casting the show. So you get Jason, and then you have this idea of, I'm going to try Harrison Ford, which feels like the biggest pipe dream in the entire world. So
It is.
Take me back to even the conversations around that, and what gave you guys.
I think it was like a joke.
Yeah.
Like it was
Yes.
like, obviously not Harrison Ford, but someone like Harrison Ford.
Yes,
Like,
you offer it to someone like Harrison Ford. This is my experience, so that like for a week, you can say out loud, "Oh, we're out to Harrison Ford,"
Yeah.
and then you will go to the real person.
you go to the
Yeah.
person you can
Yeah.
actually get. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Brett heroically, like,
So, I was in London and he was filming Indiana Jones, and it was just the maddest day where I just suddenly get a missed call and it's, "Hey, it's Harrison Ford," and I was like, "What the fuck is happening?"
And so actually, you meet him, you FaceTime him.
I met him. He. It's a long story, but the short version is I went to his apartment to discuss it, and the discussion was very, very quick because he was just so fucking great. He wanted to do it. I thought there'd be like,
Yep, you're
I'd have
pitching.
to convince him.
Yeah.
There was no pitching. He was like, "I love it." I
Do you
wanna
go
do it."
like, are you sweating and just?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm like, I'm going to meet Indiana fucking Jones. This is nuts. And he was so lovely. And what I found really fascinating about him, but of course, because he's just a very good actor. There's a quote in the Mike Nichols biography where he talks about him in Working Girl, and he says that Harrison Ford was amazing because he's like, tell me how to serve the story. He wasn't a diva. He's not a. And when I met him, he wanted to talk about how he had thoughts about how the character dressed. He wanted to talk about all the things that related to his life. Like, he was an actor, he was like a working actor. He was like, see this and this is what I would like to bring to it, and tell me about the rest of it. It wasn't all just how do I shine. It was like, what's the thing? And you see him in it, like it's Jason Segel and an ensemble, and he is fucking brilliant. But he's in the ensemble. He's not stealing. He's not. It's fantastic.
He said this thing to me when we were shooting. But he does something really amazing. From the moment he arrives, it's very generous. He makes you feel like a peer. He like breaks down the "you're supposed to be in awe of me" thing real fast.
How does he do it?
With this sense of he's a craftsman. It's he used to be a carpenter. He said this thing to me. I've been hired to build a house, and all I want is that when we're finished, the people who hired me are happy with the house. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just there he's been hired to help like build someone's dream home, metaphorically.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And then once you actually, so at that point, how much of the show do you have when you're
read
pitching
2 scripts.
He read 2, and
First
he is
2.
not yet a huge piece of it. Certainly not in the pilot. He becomes obviously.
Yeah.
And how much of that is because you got him, and how much are you sort of writing to the folks that you've cast?
You end up writing always. It's a thing that Bill Lawrence said early on when I worked with him, and he's completely right. Is usually by the latest episode 5, the actors have become their characters and they sort of take ownership of them, and it becomes easier to write because you know their voices and you're excited to write for Harrison Ford, for Jason. You know what they sound like. You know how they're doing this, and so yeah. I mean, we had a plan. We knew what the season was, but yeah, everything evolves and changes once you're working with these fucking amazing. I mean, the whole cast is insane.
An incredible ensemble.
Yeah.
My last Harrison question is,
Yeah.
I as you're writing, I think it is episode 6, which is which is an amazing episode. But like, I'm curious, sort of what handing over a script to Harrison, where you're going to be, eating your tie, among other things. Well, I'm not going to spoil it anymore, but I'm curious, sort of what that process is, where you sort of think you can take him. Are there places that you're not sure you can take him? How do you...
I have a reflection on that.
Please.
Moment. Yeah, I just remember... So you're doing your best with what you think someone might be good at or how they would want it to go, right?
Yep.
And so initially, your kind of thought is, okay, you're going to write Harrison Ford gruff, and everyone will do comedy around him, and he will kind of respond gruffly to people being funny. And around a couple episodes before, and then that episode, you're like, oh, he's doing moves. Like, Harrison Ford's here to make comedy, not to react to comedy. And I think that for me then, like, I just started to realize, like, oh, this guy's a powerhouse.
My experience when because I just couldn't believe we got him the whole time. And no one ever. I don't think even on episode 10, I still think there was crew and everyone just going, how the fuck is Harrison Ford?
I know. I kept thinking that when the announcement came, it would say like, in a strange move, Harrison Ford.
But I felt when I watched the read through of the pilot, which was amazing, I could see in his eyes like glee. Like I was like, oh, he hasn't done a big comedy.
No.
Like he's fucking excited to be being funny. And when he was getting big laughs in the room, it was like, I was like, oh, this is new for him. This is fucking, and he's so funny.
And to have something that does feel new at sort of that stage of your career must be actually quite thrilling.
I think all of us have parts of ourselves that we think are unseen. And we would like to have known.
All right, what is that part of yourself, Jason? Let's turn this into...
I actually try to tackle that. When How I Met Your Mother ended, I, for the first time since Freaks and Geeks started when I was like 19 years old.
Yep.
And I kind of went straight through and I made a bunch of romantic comedies. At the end of that run, I was like, oh, this is the first time I get to choose something. I get to like figure it out. And do I keep doing what I've been doing until like that train eventually hits a wall?
Though it would have been, I assume, quite lucrative, and there would,
Who knows? But I just
But
thought
there's
to
an endpoint to
myself,
that.
like, you have the experience of people sitting around at dinner parties being like, well, if I had directed The Revenant, I would.
right. Yep.
And I just like, I never want to be that guy about any of the things. I wanted to
Uh-huh.
find out if I could do dramas. I wanted to figure out if I could write. I wanted to figure out if I could show run. All of these like different things, and you try them to various degrees of success and failure. But I think it like exorcises some of the things that like keep you up at night.
Yeah. Sure. Do you have a version of that too?
Of things.
Yeah, this idea of sort of the pieces of you that have not yet been seen, but you'd love to sort of be able to explore through work, and
I
how
always
does that... yeah.
wanted to be a stuntman, so I guess I would.
Is that true?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, you'd be great at it.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, he's really strong.
I'm a big strong boy.
Yeah.
Big strong boy.
No, I mean, really strong.
I love it. I love it.
I'd like to do jumping out of things.
Yeah.
Just jumping out of things.
So
That's
like
the-
Tom
the
Cruise
side
style
of it.
stuff.
He jumps so high.
Thank you.
This is great.
No, I mean really high.
Really hard.
Yeah.
You also, I mean, I think you talked at the beginning of this. I'm just imagining it.
It
You
is
can't.
hard.
You
I
can't.
can't actually
Believe
imagine
me,
it.
you
I know.
think-
I think
you
I
work
can.
on-
think you're imagining it?
But
You're
I-
not imagining it.
And he works
It's
on
so
winning
high.
time.
Yeah, that's right.
He's seen some high jumpers.
So in this, in the room, you're also exploring. You're taking stories from versions of stories from your own life, and you sort of talked about it being a version of group therapy. I think you've said your dad is a version of the Harrison character, but I imagine all of you are taking versions of yourself. What have you sort of borrowed from your own worlds? Is that then what does it actually feel like to then see it come back to you on screen?
Yeah. The acting that I've always responded to most is like this is going to sound like a joke, but it's really not, sadly, is like the Kermit the Frog school. Like Kermit the Frog, Tom Hanks, Jimmy Stewart, these guys who are like, I am you for this story. Imagine I'll do the work for us, you know? And so I guess it's all, for me, it all feels sort of like me. It's the, how do I relate to what's happening in these scripts? And that's the part I need to put out. You know?
Yeah.
It's all of it.
Yeah.
This is why I love him. He wants to be Kermit the Frog.
So badly.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are the pieces of you that found its way into the show?
Oh, I mean, it's interesting when we're talking about the show, and we've been often asked this thing of like tone and like how hard is it to make a funny show about grief and stuff like that. And I always think like that's how I feel every day. Like that is
Yeah.
It's life.
life.
Yeah.
Like my experience of I sort of have this. I hate. I don't like to be negative, but the one thing I hate in film and TV is when you watch something that is just grim, depressing, and has no light in it, no humor. I always think that's badly made art. I'm like, you didn't watch life. Like that isn't how it is. Like you read people who survived the Holocaust, they talk about laughing. It happens. Do you know what I mean? Like people in war zones, they make jokes. It isn't real to not have that in it. So I don't know. That's just all of that goes into it.
Sure.
It's just instinctual
Yeah.
life experience.
So when you were making Ted Lasso, I think if I have this right, you were like 5 episodes in, and that's when you really felt like, oh, I am Roy Kent,
Yeah.
and I think
That's right.
sort of pitched yourself for it. I'm curious, as you were writing this one, I mean, did you ever have? I know schedules didn't allow you to be in this one, but did you have any of that with any of these characters,
these characters.
or another
I thought I did
way
think,
into this world?
I did think I could have been Harrison Ford, but I was like, no,
Nah,
I think it's
yeah.
pretty good. No, I never. I never went into this project sort of thinking that. I think I don't know. Some projects everything feels different. This just felt like I was writing for these guys, and I was very happy with that. It didn't occur to me on this one to.
Is it a different
myself forward.
exercise to then write in where you don't have to be in it? You don't have to then say the lines. Is there freedom
You
in
know
that?
what?
Or
I don't know if you feel this way. I don't really think there's much difference between writing and acting. It's just that one happens behind closed doors and one happens on camera. Because in both, they're both the same brain. They're both like how do I feel? What am I trying to do? Where am I? How am I relating to the people in this room? Like, it's this. You're just imagining it when you're writing, but it's still the same
I agree.
You do.
game.
I do. It was when Judd Apatow kind of mentored us. One of the things he said was, if you can improv like this, you can write. There's just a skill set you have to learn. You have to learn structure, which is a real thing, But beyond that, you're just improving all these characters, you know.
Interesting. And you have.
You
I mean,
kind of act it when
Yes.
you're writing it. You can make. It's an awful thing to say, but I can't say. You can make yourself cry writing a scene because you're kind of acting the crying as you know what I mean.
Yeah, and also we have other stuff going on.
Yeah.
Emotionally.
There's just a
I
really
was really-
terrifying.
That's the scenes. But it's writing.
At the time we were writing,
It's totally writing.
I wasn't
All
able
writing.
to jump as high as I thought, and that made me sad. So
So the tears are just streaming down. Got it.
it was nothing to do with the scene.
Nothing.
Writing also makes me so hungry.
And so you were. This was became sort of a night gig, and by day you
Yes,
were.
I was because of the way the timings lined up. I was in London doing Ted Lasso, and this was happening nighttime, my time.
He is a crazy workaholic. Like, I've said, hey, I just finished writing something. I would love for you to read it sometime. And he's like, sure, send it to me. And you send it thinking, like, in a few weeks he'll get back to me. And then, like, an hour later, it's like, I think it's great. It's really intense and amazing.
I love it.
Yeah. Even the idea of writing not for yourself. I write also, but I find it so hard. Like, just, it's so much work.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, like, putting out the effort not to be in it.
Oh, it's
Well,
interesting.
I'm a fan though.
Yeah, well,
The idea of then not actually acting. That
it's like 2 or 3 years of your life.
sure.
You know what I mean? You think of this idea. I don't know when you and Bill thought of it, but
Long time back.
yeah, long time back. You put a lot into it. It's like pushing this boulder up a hill.
So you might as well also act.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I fucking love it when I do it.
I really
this
want him to
was-
be in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we get future seasons, I really want him to be in it.
Are you willing to commit to that?
Right
Right here, right now? Yeah.
Yes.
You would.
No, I would. Of course, I'd love to play with these people.
I love it. Have you started to think about what the future of this looks like? Is that something you have all mapped out?
Can't say. In a dream world, yes, we have.
You've already done all of it. It's all been written and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
ready
yeah.
to go.
Yeah.
Got it.
All right, we did it last night. It's all ready.
Yeah, yeah.
He said, "Can you read the script?" I said, "Just let me finish the fucking next season."
What were the? I mean, as you sort of look back on the filming of this, what were the sort of the high points for you all? What were the moments that you sort of remember, whether they made it on camera or they didn't?
So you change into your wardrobe very quickly when you arrive. And so I started like thinking it makes no sense for me to waste energy picking out an outfit for the beginning of the day. So I started wearing just like a jumpsuit, but I didn't have the guts to show up when someone else might see me. So I would intentionally show up like 30 minutes before my call time to sneak into my trailer and put on my wardrobe. And the first day I like worked up my courage, and then I got there early, and Harrison Ford was waiting outside my trailer to run lines.
Oh my God.
I didn't see that coming. So we started talking, and he kept like eyeballing my jumpsuit. Like, he would like talk to me, but he kept looking down at it. And I said, "You checking out my flight suit, Harrison?" And he said, "I sure am, kid." And I felt really embarrassed. Like, I don't know why, but the next day I showed up, and Harrison Ford was wearing a matching jumpsuit. And now we're best friends. Yeah, how about that?
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And you weren't on set, so you
I'll
probably.
tell you what was the treat for me is because I wasn't there, so I would watch rushes at night, and there would be like Easter egg like treats because they did a lot of improv and they're very funny people, so there'd be stuff I wasn't there when it was generated, and like just fucking extra bits that would make me laugh out loud because I didn't know they were coming, So every night it would be like Christmas, like, oh, what extras am I getting today? It's fucking great.
How much improvising was actually done on set? I mean, you have Jessica, who's obviously.
Well, the writing was impeccable. So,
Yep.
like, you had the writing to rely on, and you always make sure that you get it. And then also, though, sometimes stuff is happening. You know, and I am like a big proponent of paying attention to that stuff. I'm like, oh, she said that word weird. I'm not gonna like pretend that didn't happen. I'm gonna say something about it, and like all of a sudden you have this little aside. But I have this like really special magical feeling about acting on film is that you're trying to catch something. I really appreciate the repetition of it, and it's important. But I think the moments I generally respond to are when you feel like the camera caught something electric, you know?
Yeah. What's on the cutting room floor that you wish people could see?
Not
Or an
much.
idea,
There's
and it may
I
not have
think,
been filmed, it could have also been an
Yeah.
idea.
You know what's mostly on the cutting room floor, truthfully, is sort of bits of exposition that you're like, we didn't need
Yes.
this. We didn't need to spell this out. It's clear. I think the stuff I love is in it. I think is the stuff we're missing.
I got to give credit to Bill Lawrence. He is an incredible editor because this thing will happen where the cut will come in and it's like 52 minutes, and you're like, oh no, oh no. And then like a week later, he'll say, here's one that's 32 minutes. I promise you won't know what I cut. And then you watch it and it's true.
Truly don't know what he cut.
It really is. He's fucking very good at
Yeah.
it.
That is an
very
incredibly impressive skill. 'Cause
It
it's
It is, and you always think, and then you watch like, I can't remember what it's called. It's really impressive. It's
Yeah.
really, really good.
Yeah.
What about the debates in the room about where these characters could go, or what did you find tended to be the things that you really sort of, whether it was actually debated, fought, just went back and forth on?
My big thing, which Brett has already touched on, was I said to them at the beginning in like a stroke of uncomfortable self-awareness, because I have to write for myself sometimes, like people will feel like he's a good guy. You can push him as far to that line. If you cross the line, I'll tell you. But otherwise, I'm pretty sure I can land him back into likability. It'll be more fun if we make him unlikable. And that we just kept trying to keep our eye on that, because otherwise it can become too sad or awkward dad. And I was like, no, make him like, I hope. Make him dad. You know what I mean?
Well, the number of times you actually call out this idea that it is awkward dad. I mean, it just it's fascinating, and also you watch it and then you're rooting for him.
Yeah.
In a way that you perhaps wouldn't if you didn't actually.
Yeah, I
Call
mean,
it
you
out.
think of the very first scene, like it's such a proof of him as a performer and a person, that opening scene with a different actor, you've got a man doing drugs by the pool where he's hired a load of sex workers and he's keeping up his neighbours. That's your intro to this character. And I don't think there's a second where the audience doesn't go, I like this guy.
I know. Like, oh, he's going through a tough time.
Yeah.
Were you always comfortable with this idea that you could sort of bring him back and that people would still like him, or is that something that you evolved, that sort of came as you've done more of this and?
You mean since I'm young? Or on this show?
No, over the course of your career. I mean,
Yeah.
is it something that you always sort of felt comfortable doing? Because I would sort of describe so many of your roles that way.
Yeah. I'm really interested. Like the comedy, I think is the funniest. Is the really honest stuff where you like get to the dirty underneath. That to me is what's interesting. I don't know if I've gotten bored in my career. It's when I was no longer doing that. When stuff became kind of surface or repetitive. Like, what's under there? That's what we all are interested in, you know?
So when
People are all the same. I really do believe that. Like, everyone's got their stuff, and I think, like, getting to the stuff is interesting.
So was there any moment at which you said, "Ooh, I think we have pushed him too far"?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so, right?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. And I do think that's like a collective, you, me, Bill, Neil Goldman, the showrunner, like, I think it's, and the writers, and it's just collectively, I think our instincts were aligned. And
Yeah.
we never had a discussion where it was like, what are you saying? This is insane.
Yeah. It's a lot of, I gotta say, really, really nice people, like, in that writer's room and everything. Like, there wasn't, we weren't pulling back, like, some real bad ideas. You know?
Right. Not that you would necessarily tell me if you were.
Yeah.
Nor does anyone ever sit in front of an interviewer and say,
Yes.
there's a bunch of
No,
assholes
but
in the room.
they're-
But I genuinely believe
I
that
don't
based on
take
what we
it
see.
for granted. Like, it's such an incredible writers' room. Those writers are really, really nice. And also one of them, Rachna, said the other day, she was talking about a friend of hers in a different writers' room that's apparently a nightmare. And she was like, yeah, this writing room's great because everyone's done therapy. Like that was
Right.
part of the like
Therapized
hiring.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. You obviously came from being in the Ted Lasso room, and I'm curious sort of how it differs, but also what you learned there that you are bringing here.
Well, I don't think it's that different at all. Like,
That's a therapized room as well.
yeah, I mean it is,
Yeah.
and you've got and it's the same thing of being in a space that has to feel safe enough and comfortable enough that people can share and can be funny and can be honest and tell their things. And then in terms of structure and character, it's all the things that we've learned over time of, like you said, make sure every character has an arc, every character is three-dimensional, every character matters. You don't just have someone there as a comedy sidekick who has no personality, you know. You make sure they all interweave. And the main thing that I learned from Jason Sudeikis is about intentionality, and I think it's something you sort of know instinctively, but when you really apply it, which is that the funny stuff's easy. You've got funny people. It's really easy. I don't mean that flippantly, as in when funny people are funny, it's quite easy to make the show as funny or as unfunny as you like. The decision is, why are you doing this? Why are you putting this scene in? Why is this character doing this? Everything should matter.
Yes.
That's what I learned from Jason, and certainly hope that we brought to this is it should all matter. It should be because you can do. It's easy to do bits that are just a string of funny bits. Like, why are we doing this? That's the question.
I mean, I think comedy has also evolved so much. I mean, I think when you were starting out, comedy was just stringing together bits, and then it got darker, and I feel like we're now coming back to somewhere in the middle where you can play with both.
Yeah.
It's one of the things very similarly that Judd said to me when we were writing these movies. He said, forgetting Sarah Marshall in particular, he said, write a drama. This is going to be funny because of the way you see the world. I guarantee it. And if it's not, we can add jokes on this all day long. But the only thing people are going to care about is the drama.
Thank you both for doing this.
Thank you very much for having
Happy
us.
birthday again.
Thanks a lot.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday
And
to
to
you.
you.
And
Happy
to
to
you. Happy
you, and
birthday.
to you, and
Happy
to
birthday,
you.
everybody.